Thank you, Cindy and Colin. Beautiful. Good evening, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. My name is Jan Freistack, and I'm honored to be your service leader tonight for this special final service of 2024. I'd like us to begin with some thoughts from the Reverend Linda Hart. This is called Open to the Blessed Darkness. In the quiet of these moments, let us take a common breath, unclench, and open to each other and the Holy One we call by many names. We arrive in these moments bearing the whole of our lives. We bring with us the worries and trouble of our days, sometimes overwhelming loss beyond words, struggles known only in the deepest places in our hearts. Here in the quiet, joined with each other, may we release all fear from our hearts, finding a moment of peace. We come to these moments with the freshness of love, the grace of small treasures, with hope and faith, knowing well the promise of the new day, even on the longest of nights. Here in the quiet, may we lift our hearts in gratitude for the gift of our lives, pausing in thanksgiving. As the earth spirals toward the solstice, let us open to the blessed darkness, praising the renewal that comes as the light slowly returns. And now I'd like to offer a special welcome to those who are visiting with us or who haven't been here in some time. We invite you to stand and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and perhaps what brought you here tonight. No one will be forced. Anyone? He's thinking about it. Well, I'd like to offer a special welcome to our guest speaker, Reverend Dawn Volpe, who comes to us from the great little village of Ephraim. So glad you're with us this evening. Now, a few announcements. Please remember to silence your phones. If you have difficulty hearing, raise your hand and they'll adjust the volume. And please join us for a wonderful holiday potluck after this service in the gathering room. Are there any other announcements? No? Oh.
Good evening, everyone. Colin Welford. Pleasure to be here. I just have a little announcement. I'd like to invite everyone to join me and my friends for a concert to celebrate the new year. We're doing 3 concerts. They're going to be at Ephraim Moravian Church, actually, and we have 2 concerts on Christmas Eve, 1 o'clock and 3:30. New Year's Eve. Sorry, New Year's Eve. There's those as well. New Year's Eve, 1 o'clock and 3:30, and then New Year's Day at 2 o'clock with oboist Stuart Sutter, who you may know from the Chef's Hat because he's one of the service buddies, professional oboist. And also 18-year-old Birch Creek concerto soloist Asha Sundaram on the flute. And Cindy's going to sing and all kinds of delights. Hope to see you there. Ask me afterwards for more details. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
The Bears lost again.
Oh. That doesn't deserve announcing, Terry. We'll begin with our chalice lighting. A reading by Jan Richardson. I cannot tell you how the light comes. What I know is that it's more ancient than imagining, that it travels across astounding expanses to reach us, that it loves searching out what is hidden, what is lost, what is forgotten or in peril or in pain, that it has a fondness for the body, for finding its way toward flesh, for tracing the edges of form, for shining forth through the eyes, the hands, the heart. I cannot tell you how the light comes, but that it does, that it will, that it works its way into the deepest dark that enfolds you, though it may seem long ages in coming, or arrive in a shape that you did not foresee. And so we may this day turn ourselves toward it. May we lift our faces to let it find us. May we bend our bodies to follow the arc it makes. May we open and open more and open still to the blessed light that comes. Please stand now for hymn 240 and after a special responsive reading and doxology. The hymn will be sung to the traditional tune, not the tune in your bulletin. Colin will play it for us. Strong. please join me in the responsive reading in your bulletin. The solstices teach us that darkness comes, that darkness goes. The solstices teach us that light comes, that light goes. The solstices teach us calmly, silently, to be calm, silent, learning. The solstices teach us as we circle the sun that everything flies. The solstices teach us to remember the dark, to remember the light, to remember time, the seasons, and love as we circle the sun. All that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, in every land, by every tongue. Be seated. We find our joys are amplified and our concerns are lessened by sharing them with each other. So now is the time for you to share. Terry will bring you the mic. Please keep in mind that the service is live streamed and saved on the internet, so don't share about anyone without their permission. Any joys or concerns?
Well, as usual, I bring good news and bad news. The bad news is Carol is still in the hospital. Today is her 36th day. But the good news is she comes home on Tuesday, which is Christmas Eve. And we're glad that she is still able to come home. I think she's getting stronger, and you saw her yesterday, didn't you?
Thank you, Ken.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2 Sundays ago, this is Cindy Steele. 2 Sundays ago, I told everyone that I was going to my yearly dog show, and I did, and we had a ball. But this year, I didn't come home empty-handed. I have a new little fur person in my family. That's great.
Well, I have a special joy, and that's to welcome back Dawn Volpe, a frequent speaker and dear friend of this congregation. But one thing you may not know about Dawn is that she's quite directionally challenged and has a tendency to get spectacularly lost. She has admitted, when I lived in Maryland, my husband gave me very specific instructions to an address in Washington, D.C. I arrived without a hitch. However, he expected me to simply reverse the directions in order to get home. I was lost after 3 turns and realized my error when the Welcome to Virginia sign loomed on the horizon. I think I arrived home by bedtime. Perhaps that's why I ended up in Door County. Whenever I'm lost here, someone kindly points me in the right direction. Well, we're glad you found your way here tonight, Dawn. And now a moment of quiet. Oh, first the offering. And now a moment of quiet.
Good evening. Wanted to talk to you this evening about three sages, three people of wisdom who gave Mary beautiful gifts. And the first one is Elizabeth, and the story comes from the Gospel according to Luke. In those days, Mary set out and went with haste to a Judean town in the hill country, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the child leapt in her womb. And Elizabeth exclaimed with a loud cry, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why has this happened to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For as soon as I heard the sound of your greeting, the child in my womb leapt for joy." Now, we've heard the story of Mary so often, how an angel visited her one day, bringing her news of an unplanned pregnancy. Mary was a teenager. She was preparing for a marriage to a man named Joseph. This was an arranged marriage. Perhaps she was excited about that. We are not told. But in the description of the angelic visitation, it's so poetic that we miss something very important. She was terrified. And we see that in the words of Luke when he said, she went with haste to visit her cousin Elizabeth. Now you can imagine why she fled the village. When the angel gave her this pronouncement, he didn't say, "You know, Mary, I'm going to make it right with Joseph. I'm going to go visit him too. And I'm going to tell him the good news that he's going to be a daddy." He didn't say, "I'll make it right with your parents and they'll be okay with all of this." No, he just makes the pronouncement and leaves. And so Mary flees because she hears that her relative Elizabeth is pregnant. Now, do you know the story of Elizabeth? After years of infertility, the wife of the high priest, a descendant of the legendary priest Aaron, a woman called Holy and Righteous, was pregnant. The entire town knew about this, and they knew it was a miracle. And Elizabeth was revered. I can only imagine the number of gifts dropped off at the home where Elizabeth had sequestered herself. My theory as to why she sequestered herself, she was not ashamed. She was thrilled she was pregnant. But I have this theory that every time she went in town, somebody wanted to touch her inappropriately. She finally said, "I've had enough." I remember at age 40 being great with child and strangers coming to me and talking to me, and I would snarl back. And so Elizabeth, was the woman of promise. She was the blessed one. And as she's reveling in this new life growing inside of her, there's a knock at the door, and her frightened young cousin comes in. And when she does, Elizabeth's baby starts to dance in Elizabeth's womb, and Elizabeth heaps praises on Mary. She calls Mary sacred, this young unwed mother, and she tells her that the child within her is holy. And by so doing, she transforms Mary into a woman of stature, a woman who knows her own worth. Right after this greeting, we call what Mary says after that the Magnificat. And you remember some of those words? She says, henceforth, generations will call me blessed. Boy, did she figure it out quickly what her worth was. She stayed with Elizabeth for 3 months, long enough for her own pregnancy to show. I imagine her walking back to her little town to face the stares of her neighbors, the disapproval of her parents and Joseph, with her head held high. Elizabeth's words ringing in her ears, "You are blessed." I think of a modern day Elizabeth. Her name was Willie Mae Ford Smith. If you've ever seen the movie Say Amen, Somebody, her story is within that movie. She was called the mother of gospel music, and she collaborated with Thomas A. Dorsey. And together they formed the Gospel Choir Convention. She was a soloist with an extraordinary range and depth, and she deserved the spotlight. She had the talent, but she didn't cut an album or get known by the mainstream, cue white people, until she was in her 60s. She said her goal was to find people who were as talented as she was, or even better, and to mentor them. One such lady was Mahalia Jackson. At the time, Mahalia ran a beauty salon. She was impressed with Willie Mae's vocal gifts, and she said to her, "Oh, if I had your talent, I would go places." And Willie Mae replied, "Oh, you can do it. You've got it. You've got what it takes. All you have to do is get out." And Mahalia said, "How you going to get out?" And at the time, she was a beautician. She was making her own face powders. And Smith remembers telling her, "This is fine. Give that recipe to somebody and take your voice out there. People need to hear your voice, the people that are down in the dumps and need to be lifted." Mahalia Jackson became a household name because someone who was as talented, as entitled to a career, called her young friend blessed. The gift of Elizabeth is the gift of the elders to the younger generation, to lift them up, to call them holy, blessed, favored. May we recognize the sacred in our young friends. May we elevate them and give them what they need to hold their heads high, knowing they are beloved. The second sage is Simeon. Again, a reading from Luke. Weeks after Jesus' birth, his parents brought their son to the temple. Now there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon. This man was righteous and devout. He came into the temple, and when the parents brought in the child Jesus, Simeon took him in his arms and praised God. Then Simeon blessed them and said to his mother Mary, "This child is destined for the falling and the rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be opposed, so that the inner thoughts of many will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your own soul too." Who says that to a new mom? A sword will pierce your own soul. It's a wonder Mary didn't snatch that baby out of that crazy man's arm and run out of the temple. Why would you say that? What kind of a gift is that? Even if his words were prophetic, wouldn't he spare a young girl's feelings? And yet, how many times that prophecy rang in Mary's ears when she and Joseph fled in terror to Egypt. A sword will pierce your soul. Or the time she lost her 12-year-old son and they couldn't find him for days. A sword will pierce your soul. Or when her son left the family business behind, wandering the countryside preaching. And finally, when she saw her firstborn son executed in front of her very eyes. A sword pierced Mary's soul many times over her beloved son's lifetime. And I believe that Simeon's gift of unvarnished truth helped Mary to steel herself for the time to come. I believe Simeon's gift gave her strength to face the unimaginable. Sometimes we think that people are too weak, too fragile for the hard truths. I had a friend who was a modern day Simeon. We were both in our 20s, but she was decades wiser than me. I found myself in an impossible employment situation, but my sense of justice and fair play emboldened me to speak truth to power. I stood up for others that had no voice, and I did not back down from a fight. And I especially took on my unethical boss. And one day I spoke to Paula, knowing that she was wiser than I, knowing that she could give me excellent strategies that could help me bring down this unreputable boss. But wise Paula told me a hard truth. She said, if anyone is going to be fired, it will be you. The company has invested too much time and money in your boss. It will be a long time before his failings come to light. By that time, you will be gone. Make plans now for a graceful exit. Oh, did I chafe at her counsel. But I couldn't escape the logic, and so I made plans. I gave up the fight. I enrolled in seminary. The reason I stand here today is because of the hard truths that my friend Paula told me. Sometimes we shy away from truth-telling, afraid it might shatter a fragile ego. But Simeon's gift is speaking hard truths because they can help us seeking wisdom and prepare ourselves for the challenges ahead. Would you stand with me as we sing hymn 244, It Came Upon the Midnight Clear. It came upon a midnight clear, that glorious song of hope, from angels bending near the earth to touch that sad and lonely plains they bend on hovering wing, and ever o'er its babble sound the blessed angels sing. But with the woes of war and strife, the world has suffered long. Beneath the angel strain have rolled 2,000 years of wrong. And we who fight the wars hear not the love song which they bring. Oh, hush the noise of battle strife and hear the angels sing. For now the days are hastening on by prophets part foretold, when with the ever-circling years comes round the age of gold, when peace over all the earth its ancient splendor sing, and the whole world will back the song which now angels sing. Please be seated. I get this every Sunday. It's so wonderful. Anna's gift. After Simeon speaks, there was a prophet Anna, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was of a great age, having lived with her husband for 7 years after her marriage, then as a widow to the age of 84. She never left the temple, but worshiped there with fasting and prayer night and day. At that moment, she came and began to praise God and to speak about the child to all who were looking for the redemption of Jerusalem. For Anna, the trajectory of her life was thwarted by her husband's death. Any property he had would have reverted to the men in his family. Since there were no children, she was deemed cursed by God. No one else would marry her. She was destined to live a life of bitterness and poverty. But Anna made a choice. Her choice was to engage in the life of her people. That life was centered in the temple in Jerusalem. The temple was not only a place of religious ritual, it was the very heartbeat of her people. It was the place where people went when they were celebrating, like the birth of a child. It was the place people went when they needed help. It was the place where people debated and congregated and sometimes even plotted. It was a place teeming with life. Men, women, all ages, children, animals, all swarming into the temple precincts every day. And so she became a fixture. But more than that, in the days, weeks, months, years, decades after her husband's death, Anna rose to prominence, not as the poor widow, but as a prophet, one whose words carried the weight of eternity. By the time Mary meets the prophet, Anna is of great age. In other words, seriously old. With the average lifespan under 40, Anna was an anomaly. And yet, although seriously old, or perhaps because of it, she saw the potential of that infant in Mary's arms. She saw a spark of the divine. Anna's gift was not in that one moment in time. Her gift was in the decades of living. Her gift was in the choice she made to shake off her widow's clothes and pour herself into the life of her people. I knew a modern day Anna. By the time I met her, she was seriously old. She was in her 90s. Her name was Viola. And like Anna, she had been widowed young. Her husband was a World War II veteran. And after the war, he came home very sick and he never recovered. And I believe she had been married 8 years when he died, but he did leave her with 2 little children to raise by herself. And she was not college educated. He did not leave her with any money. And she worked as a cafeteria lady for many years. And when I met her, I saw pictures of her as a young woman. Well, she was drop dead gorgeous. And so, of course, my question was, Viola, why didn't you ever remarry? And I thought she'd say, well, no one would have me with the kids. No, what Viola said was, I wasn't about to take care of another sick man. So I left that all behind. And Viola was an interesting lady in that she partnered with a woman who was as sweet as Viola was salty. And I'd always encounter Viola and Ruth at our church's food pantries, because they would pack the foods for people who would come in for food pantry items. And they were there almost every day. And this is how Viola blessed people. She knew what it was like to be hungry. She knew what it was like to struggle. And so she was in our little temple taking care of the people most in need. I had the privilege of burying Viola at age 100 at Arlington Cemetery, next to that beloved husband, that beloved sick young man. She was buried with full military honors. This is a woman who, like Anna, poured herself into her community. For those of us who have more years behind us than ahead of us, for those of us who have been given the gift of age, let us, like Elizabeth, mentor the next generation. Let us insist that they are sacred, holy, and blessed. Let us, like Simeon, tell difficult truths to help the next generation to stand in their own power. Let us, like Anna, live to serve, embody the graces we hope to impart to our world. May the wisdom of the sages Elizabeth, Simeon, and Anna bring light to each of our paths. Amen.
This is a reading by Howard Thurman. I will light candles this Christmas, candles of joy despite all the sadness, candles of hope where despair keeps watch, candles of courage where fear is ever present, candles of peace for tempest-tossed days, candles of grace to ease heavy burdens, candles of love to inspire all of my living, candles that will burn all the year long. So now we will light candles, and I will begin with our chalice. And I ask that as you light your candle from your neighbor, tip the unlit candle into the lit candle. And Cindy will introduce our hymn.
It is our tradition on our solstice service to sing a partner song called Night of Silence, along with Silent Night. The our choir will sing the first verse of Night of Silence, and then I will bring you in to sing Silent Night. Now, you'll have candles, so be careful. The words of Silent Night are in the order of service, and they are the traditional words. Please feel free to sing any words that make you feel comfortable. Thank you. Now, one important thing is at the end of every verse, there are 3 measures, and I will count them out so that you can all come in at the same time for the next verse.
Before we extinguish our candles and the chalice, I want to say a special thank you tonight to Colin and Cindy and the choir, and again to Reverend Dawn for making our evening so special. You can blow out your candle whenever you're ready. On this longest night of the year, we're warmed by the certain knowledge that tomorrow will welcome more light than today. As it has for eons, for billions of years, the coming of light brings life. May we be awed by the great miracles of light and life, and faithfully nurture the mystery and magic of wonder.